The crystalline walls of the council station reflected thousands of stars as Captain Yuna Kang walked through its vast corridors. She had never seen anything like this place. The station floated in neutral space, far from any sun or planet. It was built by the first species to travel between stars, and it showed their ancient power in every gleaming surface. Yuna was only 34 years old, but Earth had chosen her to represent humanity at the most important meeting in galactic history. She wore her dark blue uniform with the Earth insignia on her shoulder. Behind her walked Commander Hajun Park, a military officer with sharp eyes who watched every alien they passed. Next to them was Saman Lee, an older woman with gray hair who had advised 3 Earth presidents. The council station was crowded today. Hundreds of alien species had sent their diplomats here. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated in gravity fields or crawled on multiple limbs. Some breathed the station's air while others wore environment suits. Yuna had studied all the major species before coming here, but seeing them all together still amazed her. Earth's delegation, follow me, please, said a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms. It was a Kelthiri, one of the mid-level powers in the Galactic Council. The alien led them to a large chamber where the signing ceremony would happen. The chamber was enormous. A circular table sat in the center, large enough for representatives from 200 species. Above it, holographic displays showed the treaty document in dozens of languages and symbol systems. Yuna could see the human translation floating in the air. Thousands of pages of legal text. Captain Kang, a voice called out. Yuna turned to see Ambassador Thelvan approaching. He was Vexori, one of the 3 most powerful species in the galaxy. His skin was gray and smooth, his eyes were large and black, and he moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. We are pleased Earth will join us in this historic moment. Your government has confirmed you will sign, yes? Yuna forced a smile. We are honored to be here, Ambassador. Thelvan nodded and moved away to greet other delegations. Hajun leaned close to Yuna. I don't trust him, he whispered. I don't trust any of them, Yuna whispered back. The truth was that Earth had been part of the Galactic Council for only 15 years. Humanity had discovered faster-than-light travel late compared to most species. When Earth's first ships reached the stars, they found a galaxy already divided and organized. The Council controlled trade, technology sharing, and territorial claims. Earth had been allowed to join, but always as a junior member. Humanity's votes barely counted, and Earth's colonies were limited to systems the Council deemed appropriate. This treaty was supposed to change things. The Comprehensive Peace Treaty would end all territorial disputes between species. It would create a joint military force to protect everyone. It promised technology sharing and economic cooperation. Earth's government was excited. Finally, humanity would be protected and accepted as a real member of the galactic community. But Yuna had spent the last 3 weeks reading the treaty. All of it. Every single page. Most diplomats didn't bother reading everything. The treaty was too long. Too complex. They relied on summaries prepared by their advisors. But Yuna couldn't do that. Something felt wrong about this treaty. The way the powerful species pushed everyone to sign quickly. The way they discouraged questions. The way Ambassador Thelvan smiled, like he had already won. So Yuna read. She read through main clauses about borders and trade. She read through sections about military cooperation and technology exchange. She read the appendices that most people skipped. And there, buried in Appendix 12, Section 7, Subsection D, she found it. The Developmental Species Protocol. The protocol listed 37 species classified as developmental, including humanity. These species would enter a maturation period of 500 years. During this time, they would need council approval for military expansion, colonization of new systems, and development of certain technologies. The protocol said this was for their own protection, to help them develop safely. But Yuna understood what it really meant. 500 years of control. 500 years where humanity could not grow or expand without permission. 500 years where Earth would remain weak and dependent on the Council's goodwill. By the time the maturation period ended, the current power structure would be so entrenched that humanity would never catch up. She had shown the protocol to Saman and Hajan. Saman had gone pale. Hajan had started planning for war. Yuna had contacted Earth immediately. She had sent the protocol to the Prime Minister and the Senate. She had explained what signing this treaty would really mean. Earth's government was divided. Some officials said they should refuse to sign. Others said they had no choice. The Council's military was too strong. Earth's colonies were too vulnerable. If humanity refused this treaty, they might face sanctions or worse. Better to accept limitations now than risk destruction. Prime Minister Do-Yoon Choi had sent Yuna one final message. Use your judgment, Captain. We trust you to make the right decision for Earth. Now, the moment had arrived. The ceremony was beginning. Representatives from nearly 200 species took their places around the great table. Yuna sat in Earth's assigned seat, with Hajun and Saman on either side of her. The holographic displays shimmered and changed, showing the treaty's opening words in every language. A Tekmari diplomat, her scales glittering under the lights, spoke first. Today we create lasting peace. Today we build a galaxy where all species prosper together. Today we end the age of conflict and begin the age of cooperation. One by one, species began signing. The Vexori signed first. Ambassador Thelvan, making a great show of it. The Hulrath signed next, their representative barely visible inside a methane environment suit. More and more species added their signatures to the treaty. The holographic display tracked the progress. 100 species signed. Then 150. Then 175. Finally, only a few species remained unsigned. Earth was one of them. Captain Kang of Earth, the Tekmari diplomat called. Please approach and sign for humanity. Yuna stood. Every eye in the chamber turned to her. Aliens from across the galaxy watched and waited. She walked to the center of the room, where the treaty document waited on a pedestal. It would take only a moment. Place her hand on the scanner. Speak the words of acceptance. Bind humanity to this agreement for centuries. She looked at the document. She looked at Ambassador Thelvan, who smiled confidently. She looked at the faces of species both powerful and weak, all waiting for her to complete the ceremony. Yuna took a deep breath. She thought about Earth, about humanity's future, about children not yet born, who would live under whatever decision she made today. She placed both hands on the pedestal, but not on the scanner. She looked up at the assembled delegates and spoke in a clear, strong voice that carried through the chamber and broadcast across the galaxy. I cannot sign this document, she said. On behalf of the human species and the planet Earth, I respectfully decline. The silence lasted only a moment. Then the chamber erupted in chaos. Ambassador Thelvan rose from his seat, his smooth gray face twisting in anger. This is unacceptable. Earth committed to signing this treaty. Your government agreed. Other aliens started shouting in dozens of languages. The translation systems struggled to keep up. Some species were demanding explanations. Others were calling for Earth to be expelled from the Council immediately. A few delegates were frantically contacting their home governments. Yuna remained standing at the pedestal, calm despite the storm around her. She had expected this reaction. She had prepared for it. My government gave me authority to make the final decision, she said loudly, waiting for the noise to die down. I have reviewed this treaty completely. All of it, including the parts that most of you have not read. 2. That got their attention. The shouting decreased. Aliens turned to each other with confused expressions. Yuna gestured, and her own holographic display appeared above the pedestal. Appendix 12. Section 7. Subsection D. The Developmental Species Protocol. This section places 37 species, including humanity, under a 500-year maturation period. During this time, we cannot expand our colonies, build our militaries, or develop certain technologies without council approval. She looked around the chamber. This treaty does not create equality. It locks the current power structure in place, forever. The strong stay strong. The weak stay weak. That is not peace. That is permanent subjugation. A Hulroth delegate spoke through his environment suit speakers. The protocol is for protection. Young species need guidance. We need freedom, Yuna replied. The same freedom you had when your species was developing. Did the Hulroth accept limits on your growth? Did the Vexori ask permission before colonizing new worlds? No. You built your power without restrictions. This protocol ensures that no one else can do the same. Ambassador Thelvan's voice was cold. Earth makes a dangerous mistake. This treaty is the galaxy's best chance for lasting peace. By refusing, you endanger everyone. Then perhaps the treaty should be rewritten, Yuna said. Without hidden clauses that treat some species as permanent children. She turned and walked back to her seat. Hajun and Somin both stood up with her, showing their support. As Yuna reached her place, something unexpected happened. The Kelthiri delegate stood. His forearms gestured nervously. Perhaps Earth raises valid concerns. Perhaps we should review the protocol sections more carefully before finalizing signatures. Ambassador Thelvan glared at the Kelthiri. Your government already signed. You cannot withdraw your signature. Actually, the Kelthiri said quietly. According to treaty law, signatures are not binding until all parties have signed. Since Earth has refused, the treaty is not yet active. Any species may reconsider. The chamber erupted again. This time, several species were huddling in groups, frantically reviewing their copies of the treaty. Yuna watched as more and more delegates discovered the protocol that had been buried in the appendices. Faces changed from confusion to understanding to anger. The ceremony collapsed into chaos. The Tekmari diplomat tried to restore order but failed. Eventually, she declared a recess. Delegates scattered to contact their governments and analyze what had just happened. Back in Earth's assigned diplomatic quarters, Yuna sat down heavily. Her hands were shaking now that the immediate confrontation was over. Somin poured her water, while Hajun checked the security systems to ensure they were not being monitored. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen, or the most foolish, Somin said. Possibly both. Earth's government is contacting us, Hajun reported. 57 priority messages so far. Yuna took a drink of water. Let me speak with Prime Minister Choi first. The holographic communicator activated. Prime Minister Do-yoon Choi appeared, looking tired and stressed. It was late night in Seoul, where the Earth government was based. Behind him, Yuna could see other officials arguing. Captain Kang, the Prime Minister said. Half my government wants to fire you immediately and sign the treaty anyway. The other half wants to give you a medal. I'm somewhere in between. Explain yourself. Yuna explained everything. The protocol. The 500-year maturation period. The permanent restrictions on human development. As she spoke, she watched the Prime Minister's expression change. He had not known. The Council had sent Earth's government a summary of the treaty, not the complete document. They lied to us, Choi said quietly when she finished. They buried the truth, Yuna corrected. There is a difference, but not much of one. The Prime Minister turned away, speaking to someone off-screen. Yuna could hear raised voices. Finally, he turned back to the communicator. The Senate is convening an emergency session. Public protests are already starting in major cities. Some people want us to sign anyway for safety. Others support your decision. This will take time to resolve. Can you maintain your position on the station? We can, Yuna said. But sir, the Council will not wait patiently. They will pressure us. Threaten us, probably. I know, Choi said. But I will not sign away humanity's future, because we are afraid. Hold your ground, Captain. Earth stands with you. I'll send a formal statement within the hour. The communication ended. Yuna looked at Hajun and Somin. Well, at least we're not fired yet. Give them time, Hajun said dryly. Over the next day, everything changed very quickly. Prime Minister Choi released Earth's formal statement, explaining why Yuna had refused to sign. He published the complete treaty text, including the protocol, for all humans to read. The response was overwhelming. Millions of people across Earth and its colonies supported the refusal. They marched in the streets carrying signs saying, "Free humans," and "Equal or nothing." But Earth's decision had effects far beyond humanity. The Kelthiri government withdrew its signature from the treaty, citing concerns about the protocol. 3 other species did the same. Then 2 more. The carefully constructed peace agreement was falling apart. The Council's 3 dominant powers, the Vexori, Hulrath, and Tekmari, were furious. They released a joint statement condemning Earth's irresponsible rejection of the treaty. They claimed humanity was endangering galactic stability. They warned that there would be consequences. Yuna received a private message on the station's network. It was from the Kelthiri ambassador, whose name was Serthal. He wanted to meet, secretly. Against Hajun's advice, Yuna agreed. She met Serthal in a small meditation chamber that the Kelthiri had brought with them. The alien's 4 arms moved nervously as he spoke. "My government thanks Earth for revealing the protocol," Serthal said. "We had not read it carefully. We signed because we felt pressured. Because everyone else was signing. Because we were afraid to be left out." "Many species probably felt the same way," Yuna said. "Yes," Serthal agreed. "The Council's dominant powers are very good at creating pressure. They make you feel like you have no choice but to agree with them. But Earth showed there is always a choice. You chose freedom over security. We might regret it," Yuna admitted. "The Council can make life very difficult for us. They can make life difficult for all of us who followed your lead," Serthal said. "That is why I am here. My government wishes to propose an alliance. Earth and the Kelthiri. Together. Perhaps other species will join us. We can support each other against Council pressure." Yuna considered carefully. An alliance meant commitment. It meant Earth would be responsible not just for its own fate, but for helping protect other species. It could also make Earth a bigger target. But it also meant humanity would not stand alone. "I need to consult with my government," Yuna said. "But personally, I think this is a good idea." Serthal's expression showed relief. "I hoped you would say that. Together, we might be strong enough to negotiate a better treaty. A real treaty. One that treats all species fairly." As Yuna walked back to Earth's quarters, she felt hope for the first time since refusing to sign. Earth had taken a stand. Other species were joining them. Maybe, just maybe, they could change things. But she also felt fear. Because the Council's dominant powers would not accept this challenge quietly. They had maintained control of the galaxy for thousands of years. They would not let a young species like humanity upset their careful plans. The real test was still coming. The consequences came faster than anyone expected. 3 days after the treaty ceremony collapsed, the Council's dominant powers announced new trade regulations. Ships from Earth and the 5 species that had withdrawn their signatures were no longer welcome at major Council trading stations. Resources that Earth colonies depended on, things like medical supplies and rare metals, were suddenly unavailable at any price. Yuna watched the news reports from her quarters on the Council station. Human colonies on the frontier were running short on critical supplies. Some had only weeks of medical materials left. Others needed replacement parts for their life support systems. The Council was not officially blockading anyone, but the effect was the same. "This is economic warfare," Hajun said, watching the same reports. "They're trying to force us into submission without firing a shot. It's working too," Salman added. She showed them messages from Earth. "Opposition to our decision is growing. People are scared. Senator Minho Bay is leading protests in Seoul. He's saying that human pride isn't worth watching children die when colonies run out of medicine. Yuna felt the weight of every decision she had made. She had known there would be consequences. But knowing and experiencing were different things. These were real people, suffering because she had refused to sign a document. But the protocol was also real. If she had signed, humanity would have suffered differently. Slower, but permanently. Sometimes, there were no good choices, only less bad ones. We need to make this work, Yuna said. How are the other species handling the pressure? Salmon checked her reports. The Kelthiri are struggling but holding firm. 2 of the smaller species are considering going back to the council and apologizing. They can't handle the economic isolation. Then we need to move faster, Yuna said. Set up a meeting with all the species that withdrew. Today. If possible. The meeting happened in a conference room that the Kelthiri had secured. 7 species sent representatives. Yuna looked around the table at aliens, who were all facing the same pressure from the council. Some looked determined. Others looked frightened. We need to formalize our cooperation, Yuna began. The council is trying to break us by making us face the consequences alone. If we work together, share resources and support each other, we can survive their pressure. A delegate from the Fori species, small beings covered in brown fur, spoke up nervously. Earth has resources. Your colonies are large and productive. But my people have only 3 colony worlds. We cannot survive a long economic war with the council. Then we share, Yuna said. Earth will provide medical supplies to Fori colonies. In return, your species has advanced water purification technology that several human colonies need. We trade what we have for what we need. Serthal of the Kelthiri added his support. This is how we survive. The council expects us to compete with each other, to blame each other for our problems. Instead, we cooperate. We become our own network, independent of council control. Over the next hours, they hammered out the basics of an agreement. The Independent Coalition, they called it. 7 species who refused to accept the council's domination. They established resource-sharing agreements and mutual defense pacts. If the council attacked one member, they all responded together. It was not perfect. The coalition was much weaker than the council, both economically and militarily, but it was something. A start. 2 weeks later, Yuna traveled to the Kelthiri homeworld for a larger coalition meeting. As her ship approached the planet, she marveled at its blue and green surface. The Kelthiri had built their cities to blend with nature rather than dominate it. From space, their world looked peaceful and beautiful. The meeting was held in a hall carved from living crystal that grew naturally on the Kelthiri world. Delegates from all 7 coalition species attended. They were discussing the formation of alternative trade routes when the explosion happened. The blast tore through the eastern side of the hall. Yuna was thrown to the ground by the shock wave. Her ears rang. Smoke filled the air. Through the chaos, she could see bodies. Some moving, and some not. The Fori delegate who had spoken at their first meeting lay still near the ruined wall. Security forces rushed in. Medical teams started treating the wounded. Yuna had cuts on her face and arms, but nothing serious. Hajun found her quickly, checking her for injuries despite being injured himself. Blood ran down his left arm, but he ignored it. Bomb, he said shortly. Professional work. Meant to kill everyone in this room. 23 delegates died in the explosion. Dozens more were wounded. But worse than the deaths was what came next. Evidence appeared suggesting that human extremists were responsible. Messages were found on extremist networks taking credit for the attack. Forensic analysis supposedly traced the bomb components to Earth manufacturing. The evidence was too perfect. Too convenient. Yuna knew immediately that it was fake. Planted to destroy the coalition. By turning its members against each other. But knowing the truth and proving it were different things. The other coalition species looked at Earth with suspicion and fear. If humans had done this, how could anyone trust them? The careful trust that Yuna had built was crumbling. "We did not do this," she told the other delegates at an emergency meeting. "This is exactly what the Council wants us to believe. They want us fighting each other instead of standing together." "Then prove it," said the Tekmari delegate who had joined the coalition. "Show us evidence that clears Earth." "We're working on it," Yuna said. Back in the coalition's temporary headquarters, Salmon coordinated with Earth's intelligence services. They had experts analyzing every piece of evidence, looking for signs of manipulation. It was Salmon herself who found the key detail. "The bomb components," she explained to Yuna and the other coalition leaders 3 days later. "They're marked as Earth manufactured, yes. But the specific batch numbers don't exist in Earth's records. Someone created fake components and fake records to frame us." She displayed holographic evidence showing the discrepancies. The batch numbers that should have existed in manufacturing databases. The shipping records that didn't match any real transports. The extremist messages that used language patterns no actual human would use. This was a Council intelligence operation, Salmon concluded. They wanted to destroy the coalition from within. They almost succeeded. The evidence was compelling enough that the other coalition species accepted it. Trust was damaged but not destroyed. The members renewed their commitment to stand together. But now everyone knew that the Council was willing to kill them to maintain power. 4 days later, Ambassador Thelvan of the Vixori delivered a message to Earth. It was broadcast across all channels, so everyone could hear it. His smooth gray face showed no emotion as he spoke. "The Galactic Council has shown great patience with Earth and its followers. We offered you a path to peace and security. You rejected it. We offered you time to reconsider. You used that time to build opposition to the Council's authority. We now offer you one final opportunity. Within 30 days, Earth and the other coalition species must sign a modified treaty. The terms will be similar to the original, adjusted for current circumstances. If you refuse, the Council will have no choice but to take protective action to ensure galactic stability." Protective action. The phrase was vague enough to mean anything, but everyone understood. It meant invasion. It meant war. Yuna sat in Earth's diplomatic quarters watching the message. Around her, Hajun and Salmon watched too. When it ended, they sat in silence for a long moment. "They're giving us an ultimatum," Hajun finally said. "Sign their treaty or fight a war we cannot win." "Maybe we can't win," Yuna said slowly. "But maybe we don't have to. What does the Council really want? They want to maintain their power, their control. They're afraid of species like us because we represent change. If we can make enough other species see that, if we can show the entire galaxy what the Council really is, maybe we can win without fighting." "You want to beat them politically," Salmon said. "Turn the rest of the galaxy against them." "It's our only chance," Yuna said. She opened a communication channel that would broadcast across all galactic networks. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "Ambassador Thelvan, you call your ultimatum a generous offer. You call potential violence protective action. You claim to want peace while threatening war. The independent coalition sees through these words. We know what you really fear. You fear equality. You fear a galaxy where younger species can grow and develop without your permission. You fear losing control." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "To all species watching this, ask yourselves a question. Do you want to live in a galaxy ruled by fear and force? Or do you want to live in a galaxy based on freedom and cooperation?" The Council offers the first option. The Coalition offers the second. The choice is yours. The broadcast ended. Yuna sat back, exhausted. She had thrown down a challenge to the Council's authority. Now they would see how the galaxy responded. The human supply convoy consisted of 5 cargo ships, escorted by 2 military vessels. They were carrying medical supplies and food to a frontier colony called New Sol. The colony had 3,000 people, including 800 children. Without these supplies, they would face serious shortages within a week. Commander Hajun had wanted to send more military escorts, but Earth's fleet was stretched thin, protecting multiple colony systems. 2 escorts would have to be enough. The convoy was traveling through space that technically belonged to no one. This far from any star, there were no territorial claims. It should have been safe. But halfway to their destination, 6 council ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in their path. The council ships were Vexori design, sleek and powerful. They moved to surround the convoy. The lead Vexori vessel sent a communication. Human vessels, you are carrying contraband materials through council-monitored space. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Captain Bauman Kim, commanding the convoy, responded immediately. This is not council space. We are carrying legal supplies to our colony. We do not recognize your authority to board us. Your recognition is not required, the Vexori captain replied. If you resist inspection, we will interpret that as hostile action. Bauman contacted Earth Command immediately. The situation was escalating fast. He needed orders. But Earth was hours away at light-speed communication. He had to make decisions now. We will not submit to boarding, Bauman told the Vexori. You have no legal right to stop us. We are proceeding to our destination. The convoy began moving forward. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Vexori ships opened fire. They targeted the military escorts first. Particle beams ripped through shields and armor. One human warship exploded immediately, its fusion reactor breaching. The second managed to return fire before it too was destroyed. The cargo ships tried to run, but they were slow and unarmed. The Vexori ships destroyed 2 of them, before the others managed to make emergency faster-than-light jumps to random coordinates. 3 cargo ships escaped, 2 were destroyed. The medical supplies that New Seoul desperately needed were scattered as debris in empty space. News of the attack reached Earth within hours. Yuna was in a meeting with Prime Minister Choi when the reports came through. She watched the footage from the surviving ships' cameras, watched council ships destroy unarmed cargo vessels, watched human ships explode. They've started killing us, Choi said quietly. They claim they were enforcing regulations, but everyone knows the truth. They attacked first. What's Hajun's status? Yuna asked. He's leading a response fleet to the location now, Choi replied. 30 ships. It's the largest force we can spare. Tell him to be careful, Yuna said. The council wants us to overreact. They want an excuse to escalate further. I know, Choi said. But we can't let them attack our people without response. Every species in the galaxy is watching. If we do nothing, we look weak. If we look weak, the coalition falls apart. Commander Hajun's fleet arrived at the attack site 6 hours after the incident. The Vexori ships were still there, seemingly waiting. Hajun broadcast on open channels so his message would be recorded. Vexori vessels, you have attacked and destroyed civilian ships in neutral space. This is an act of war. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be escorted to Council Station to face justice. The Vexori captain's response was arrogant. Human vessels, you are in violation of Council emergency regulations. Leave this area immediately, or face the consequences. Hajun looked at his tactical display. 6 Vexori ships against his 30. The numbers favored humanity. But the Vexori had better technology. Their ships were more advanced. Their weapons more powerful. This would not be an easy fight, but sometimes you had to fight anyway. All ships, Hajun ordered. Target their weapons and engines only. Disable them. Don't destroy them unless necessary. We're not murderers like they are. The battle was brief and intense. Human ships swarmed the Vexori vessels from multiple directions. Particle beams and missiles filled the space between them. The Vexori ships were individually superior, but they were outnumbered and surrounded. Hajun's tactics focused on precision strikes against specific systems. 3 Vexori ships were disabled within the first 10 minutes. Their weapons destroyed. Their engines offline. But their crews alive. The other 3 Vexori ships tried to retreat, but Hajun had positioned ships to block their escape routes. 20 minutes after the battle started, all 6 Vexori vessels were floating helpless in space. Hajun sent rescue teams to evacuate the Vexori crews. He would not leave them to die in disabled ships. Earth would show the galaxy that humans fought with honor, even against those who did not. The Battle of Empty Space, as it came to be called, changed everything. For the first time, humans had defeated Council ships in direct combat. The message was clear. Earth could fight back. The Council's response was immediate and massive. They declared the attack on their ships an act of war. They began assembling a fleet at the edge of human space. Within days, 200 Council warships gathered at a staging point, preparing for a major operation. Yuna called an emergency coalition meeting. All 7 species sent their leaders. The mood was tense. This was the moment they had all feared. The Council was preparing for war, and the coalition would have to decide whether to fight together or surrender separately. If we back down now, everything we've worked for ends, Yuna told the assembled leaders. The Council will impose terms even worse than the original treaty. They'll make examples of us to discourage any other species from challenging their authority. End quote. Their Bintinchur's eyes, end quote. Well, Serthal of the Kelthiri spoke carefully. But if we fight, many will die. The Council's fleet is larger than all our forces combined. Can we even win? Maybe not in a straight battle, Yuna admitted. But we don't need to win battles. We need to survive long enough for the rest of the galaxy to see what's really happening. We need to show that the Council maintains power through force and fear, not justice and law. One by one, the coalition leaders agreed to stand together. They began assembling their own fleet. 40 ships from Earth, 30 from the Kelthiri, smaller numbers from the other species. In total, about 90 warships against the Council's 200. The odds were not good. But while the coalition prepared for battle, Yuna prepared for something else. She had received a secret message from Serthal. Several Council species were privately opposed to military action but were afraid to speak openly. They feared the dominant powers would turn on them next. But if Yuna could create an opportunity, if she could force the Council's leadership to reveal their true intentions publicly, these species might find the courage to oppose the war. Ambassador Thelvan sent Yuna an invitation, a final negotiation aboard a neutral station before military operations began. It was obviously a trap. Intelligence reports suggested the Council planned to arrest Yuna as a galactic criminal and force Earth's government to surrender to secure her release. You can't go, Hajun said firmly when Yuna told him about the invitation. I know it's a trap, Yuna replied. Yuna's plan was risky. She would attend the meeting but ensure that everything said there was broadcast live across the entire galaxy. The Council station's communication systems could be accessed if you knew the right codes, and Earth's intelligence services had acquired those codes months ago. When Yuna arrived at the neutral station, she was accompanied only by Sawman. They were scanned for weapons and recording devices. The scanners found nothing because the broadcast system was already in place, hidden in the station's own infrastructure. Ambassador Thelvan waited in a conference room with a dozen other Council officials. His gray face showed satisfaction. He thought he had won. Captain Kang, he said, we invited you here to offer one final chance for peace. But first, you must answer for your crimes against the Council. Crimes? Yuna asked calmly. Defending our people from your unprovoked attack is not a crime. You provoked us by rejecting the treaty, Thelvan said. You provoked us by encouraging other species to rebel. You provoked us by attacking Council ships. We defended ourselves, Yuna replied. Your ships attacked our convoy first. Everyone knows this. Thelvan smiled coldly. What everyone knows will not matter soon. You are under arrest, Captain Kang. Earth's government will surrender to Council authority, or you will face trial for crimes against galactic peace. And if Earth refuses? Yuna asked. Then you will be found guilty, and Earth will be occupied by Council forces for its own protection. Either way, humanity's rebellion ends today. Yuna stood calmly. Before you arrest me, Ambassador, perhaps you should explain something. Why does the Council really oppose the Coalition? Why do you fear younger species having the same freedoms you enjoyed? We fear nothing, Thelvan snapped. Then why the protocol? Yuna pressed. Why lock species into 500 years of restricted development? What are you afraid will become? Thelvan's expression changed. His control slipped, and anger showed through. You want the truth? Fine. The Council's founding species are in decline. Our populations are aging. Our technologies have plateaued. Meanwhile, species like yours are young and growing. In a few centuries, you might surpass us. The protocol was designed to prevent that, to keep you controlled until you're so far behind you can never catch up. The words hung in the air. Thelvan realized too late what he had said. He had admitted the truth openly. The treaty was never about peace. It was about preserving power, and every word had been broadcast across the galaxy. Ambassador Thelvan's admission echoed across the galaxy. Billions of beings, on hundreds of worlds, watched the broadcast. They heard him explain that the treaty was designed to keep younger species permanently weak. They heard him admit that the Council's dominant powers feared being surpassed. They heard the truth spoken plainly by one of the Council's own leaders. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. On Council worlds, protests erupted. Species that had quietly accepted the Council's authority for centuries began demanding change. Government officials who had supported the treaty found themselves facing angry populations, asking why they had almost signed away their futures. In the Council chamber itself, 16 species called for emergency sessions. They demanded a vote of no confidence in the three dominant powers. They wanted the Vexori, Hulrath, and Tekmari leadership removed from their positions of authority. Yuna was still on the neutral station when the chaos began. Thelvan had tried to arrest her, but station security refused to cooperate once the broadcast started. They would not help arrest someone who had just exposed the truth. Yuna and Salman walked out freely, while Council officials scrambled to control the damage. Back on Earth, Prime Minister Choi called Yuna immediately. You did it, he said, his voice filled with amazement. You actually did it. The Council is falling apart. It's not over yet. Yuna warned. Thelvan and the others won't surrender power peacefully. They still have their fleet. Not. She was right to be cautious. The 200 Council ships that had been gathering to attack human space remained ready for battle. But now, their orders were unclear. Some ships received commands to attack immediately. Others received orders to return home. The confusion reflected the political chaos consuming the Council. The Coalition fleet, meanwhile, had taken up defensive positions around Earth's key systems. 90 ships commanded by Admiral Jenny Kwan, who had been promoted to lead the combined forces. Commander Hajun served as her second in command, leading the human contingent. Jenny was an experienced officer, calm under pressure. She had fought in the border conflicts before Earth joined the Council. Now she commanded ships from 7 different species, each with different technologies and tactics. Welding them into an effective force had been challenging, but she had managed it. When the Council fleet began moving toward human space, Jenny prepared for battle. But then something unexpected happened. 12 Council ships broke formation and contacted the Coalition fleet directly. Admiral Kwan, the lead captain said, "This is Captain Reeves of the Council ship Horizon. My crew and I have reviewed the broadcasts from the neutral station. We cannot participate in this attack. The Council leadership has lost its moral authority. We request permission to join your defensive formation." Jenny was stunned. Council ships were defecting to the Coalition side. Within hours, the number grew to 23 ships. Crews that had watched Thelvan's admission decided they would not fight for leaders who had lied about the treaty's true purpose. The remaining council fleet still outnumbered the coalition, but the balance had shifted. More importantly, the defections showed that support for the war was crumbling even within the council's own military. For 3 days, the two fleets faced each other across space. Neither side attacked. Both sides waited to see what would happen politically. Would the council's government collapse? Would new leadership emerge? Then hardliners within the Vexori, Hulrath, and Tekmari governments made their move. They rejected the calls for reform. They declared that the council would not bow to pressure from rebellious species. They ordered their fleet to attack the coalition immediately, to crush this challenge to their authority once and for all. The Battle of the Crossroads began at dawn Earth time. 140 council ships against 113 coalition and defector ships. The space between Earth and Mars became a battlefield filled with particle beams, missiles, and exploding vessels. Jenny commanded from her flagship, coordinating the diverse coalition forces. Hajun led a strike group targeting the council command ships. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Ships from dozens of species fought and died in the cold darkness of space. The council ships were better armed and better armored. The coalition ships were more maneuverable and fought with desperate courage. The battle could have gone either way. Then the council fleet made a mistake. A group of Vexori ships broke formation to attack a Kelthiri colony world on the edge of the battle zone. They wanted to force the coalition ships to split up defending the colony. But Hajun saw the opportunity. He led his strike group directly at the Vexori ships, positioning his own flagship between them and the colony. The Vexori concentrated their fire on Hajun's ship. But Hajun held position long enough for the rest of his strike group to arrive and drive the Vexori back. The colony was saved, but Hajun's ship was crippled. Rescue ships pulled survivors from the damaged vessel. Hajun survived, though he was badly injured. But 217 crew members died protecting that colony. Their sacrifice was broadcast across the galaxy, showing the price of the Council's attempt to maintain power through force. The battle lasted 11 hours. When it ended, neither side had clearly won. Both fleets were damaged and exhausted, but the coalition had held. Earth and its allies had survived the Council's attempt to crush them. That survival was itself a victory. More importantly, the battle turned galactic opinion decisively against the Council's leadership. The images of Council ships attacking colonies, of crews dying to preserve an unjust system, were too much. Even species that had supported the Council began demanding change. Within a week, the three dominant powers were forced from their leadership positions. The old Council structure was dissolved. Species across the galaxy demanded something new, something fair, something that treated everyone equally. Yuna proposed a solution. Instead of a council dominated by a few powerful species, create a true democratic assembly, where every species had equal representation. No permanent positions of power, no privileged members, everyone equal under the law. The proposal was radical. It meant species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years would have no more authority than species that had barely reached the stars. But after everything that had happened, after all the lies and fighting, radical change was the only option that could bring real peace. The conference was held on Earth, in Seoul. Representatives from 47 species gathered, including many from the old council. They debated for weeks about the structure of this new government. There were arguments and disagreements, but everyone was committed to finding a solution. The Charter of Free Worlds was signed on a clear spring day. It established a democratic galactic government where every species had one vote, regardless of their size or power. It guaranteed the right of all species to develop freely without interference. It created a military alliance for mutual defense, but prohibited aggressive wars. It was everything the old treaty had pretended to be, but never was. Yuna was chosen as the first Secretary General. Not because Earth dominated the new government, but because her stand against the treaty had inspired the change that made it possible. She accepted the position knowing it would be difficult and complicated. Building a truly fair galactic government would take years of hard work. The three species that had dominated the old council reacted differently to the new order. The Hulrath and Tekmari eventually accepted seats in the new assembly as equals. The Vexori refused. They withdrew from galactic politics entirely, retreating to their home systems in bitter isolation. 5 years passed. Una remained Secretary General, working to make the Charter of Free Worlds a living reality. The new government faced many problems. Old hatreds did not disappear overnight. Territorial disputes still occurred. Some species struggled to accept their loss of privileged status, but it was working. Slowly, gradually, the galaxy was becoming a more just place. Species that had been held down by the protocol were now developing freely. Trade expanded between worlds that had been kept separate by the old council's regulations. New technologies were shared openly, rather than hoarded. On a cool morning, Una visited the memorial on Earth dedicated to those who died in the Battle of the Crossroads. The memorial listed every name, human and alien, who had given their lives for the cause of galactic freedom. She walked slowly along the walls, reading the names. Hayun joined her, walking with a slight limp from his injuries. He had recovered, but would never be completely whole again. He wore his admiral's uniform with the medals he had earned. Next to him was Saman, now serving as Earth's Prime Minister after winning a landslide election, and Sirthal of the Kelthari, who had become one of Una's closest advisors. They stood together in silence for a long moment, remembering the cost of what they had achieved. So many had died. So many families had lost loved ones. The price of freedom had been paid in blood. Some historians are calling what you did the rejection heard across the galaxy, Saman said quietly. They say your refusal to sign changed everything. Una shook her head slightly. I didn't reject peace. I rejected chains. There's a difference. It was still the bravest thing I've ever seen, Hajun said, standing alone against the entire galaxy when everyone wanted you to just sign. I wasn't alone, Una replied. Earth supported me. You both supported me. Then other species joined us. That's the lesson. I think. You can stand up to power if you're willing to face the consequences. And if you stand for something that matters, you won't stand alone for long. Our limes. Limes. They looked up at the sky together. Above them, ships from dozens of species traveled between the stars. The galaxy was still imperfect, still struggling, still learning how to make democracy work across so many different civilizations. But it was trying. It was making the effort to build something better than what had come before. That night, Una returned to her office in the government complex. There were reports to read, decisions to make, meetings to attend. The work of building a fair galactic society never ended, but she didn't mind. This was what she had fought for. This chance to create something better. She thought about the moment when she had stood in the council chamber and refused to sign the treaty. How scared she had been. How uncertain. She had no way of knowing then that her decision would lead to all this. She had simply known that signing would be wrong, and that she could not do something wrong just because everyone else was doing it. Sometimes, Una reflected, the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. And sometimes, one person saying no can change the galaxy. She looked at the Earth flag on her wall, beside flags from all the member species of the new government. Humanity had wanted to be accepted by the galactic community. They had achieved that, but not by submitting to unfair terms. They had earned acceptance by standing up for principles that all free beings could support. Earth was no longer a junior member begging for approval. Earth was an equal partner in building a better future. And that made all the struggle worthwhile. Una smiled and got back to work. The galaxy was not perfect yet, but it was getting better. and she would do everything in her power to keep it moving in the right direction.